Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 10 of VAR and Espresso. And you have joined us after the event of the day of from the day before, which was the finale of Group A and B. And we've had two surprise eliminations and a whole bucket full of goals. My goodness! If you stayed up in Europe to watch Porto versus 𝐊𝐤𝐼, I'm glad you stayed up for that one. We have seen, like say, Group A complete, Group B complete, and we have the first two complete fixtures of the round of 16. And the results from last night, the first ones were Atletico Madrid 1, Botafogo 0-0, and Seattle Sounders 0, PSG 2. And in Group A, you had Inter Miami 2, Palmeiras 2, and the Goliath-like battle between Porto 4 and 𝐊𝐤𝐼 4. I suppose we should kick off with the most recent one, the Porto 4, 𝐊𝐤𝐼 4. Yeah. First of all, what a game! What a fun, stupid, ridiculous game of football.
Yeah. It was, I think, the most entertaining game of the tournament so far, no?
Absolutely. I was going to say, I think it might appeal more to the American audience because it's the most like a basketball match. It was just constantly that way. There was very little control, very little tactic. It was just you attack, we attack, you attack, so on and so on.
You know what it reminded me of a cup match, except that neither team had anything to lose yesterday. They just had everything to gain. So it was pretty pleasant to watch. As you said, it was not very tactical. It was pure chaos, in my opinion, with plenty of twists and turns, and above all, superb goals. Because I think 4 or 5 of the 8 goals were just superb.
Oh, they are. Yeah, actually, the qualities of goals, you're absolutely right, were very high. Like you say, very much like a knockout tie, simply because both teams had to win. So going into the match, both teams were on 1 point each. Porto had to win and hope that Palmeiras lost for them to progress, and 𝐊𝐤𝐼 had to win and hope that Inter Miami lost. And obviously a draw immediately eliminated both of them anyway, but it was all irrelevant because of the result in the next match. But neither team were to know. Despite the fact there were 8 goals, Porto were actually never ahead in the tie. So the game started, the first goal was in the 15th minute by 𝐊𝐤𝐼. Porto actually being quite careless in build-up from the back. The ball is stolen, and suddenly 𝐊𝐤𝐼 had, I think it was a 4-on-3 in the final third. It was quite a mistake from the defense, but a lovely finish from 𝐊𝐤𝐼.
Yeah. I think he was really cold-blooded on his 3 goals, because he scored a hat-trick. For those who don't know, even his penalty were really good.
If I'm not wrong, was it a perfect hat-trick? Because I think the first one left foot, second one was a right foot from the penalty, and the third one was a headed finish.
Yeah.
So yeah, an incredible all-round performance then from 𝐊𝐤𝐼. So that opened the scoring in the 15th minute. Less than 10 minutes later, Rodrigo Moura equalised for Porto. He a small dribble. He got a bit of luck from a block tackle from the Porto defender, sort of came back off him. But after that, he showed incredible ball control to go around the goalkeeper and finish from a tight angle.
Yeah, but concerning Moura's goal, I think, as you said, he was kind of lucky because of the ball reflection. But luck is made. He believed he could have scored this goal, and it was clear that his desire was bigger than the one of the defenders. It's a goal full of lucidity, which is not always easy because he's just 18. Just to replace the performance, and he showed all if his class. And I think it's a good reward for him, because we saw a glimpse of his talent against Palmeiras. We also did when they played who is the fourth team? Inter Miami, and now he's rewarded with a goal.
Yeah, and in fact, I'd probably say before we get to the end of the match, I'd say that this has been a fairly disastrous tournament for Porto in regards to damage to the reputation. But Rodrigo Moura, who is, to be fair, is known as something of a wonder kid anyway, who had a bit of a breakthrough season this last season with Porto. This tournament has really shone a light on him in particular.
Yeah, and just to finish with this game, we can say it was really entertaining because totally there were 40 shots, including 19 on target and 8 goals, which is quite big for it. It means that every 2 shots on target there was a goal. So it's kind of incredible.
Well, it also goes back to something you said at the start about how, because they had nothing to lose, chances are that more and more players, as we'll come on to in a second, more and more players were trying their luck from difficult angles and from long range and just hitting it purely. So Ali went in at the break 2-1 up because Abu Ali scored a penalty in a second minute of stoppage time after 𝐊𝐤𝐤 was sort of bundled over in the penalty area. And then you had this extraordinary period of I think it was in 4 minutes between the 50th and the 53rd minute. You had 4 minutes, 3 goals, and just it was sort of this beautiful chaos. So 50th minute, Williams scored. Actually, Al Ali, talk about like a basketball game. Al Ali were breaking forwards, and there was a final pass almost going through the defense, and they would have played a striker through on goal. But it was intercepted by a defender on the halfway line, who then played it out to the left for William, who cut inside and managed to bend in a gorgeous finish from the edge of the box. And then, literally after kickoff, Ali go up the pitch. It's a cross from the right wing, and then Abu Ali headers in from about 10 yards out. Like incredible scenes. And then, straight from kickoff, Porto then go up the other end, and from that corner, it's in-swinging delivery, and 𝐊𝐤𝐜𝐤 powers a header into the back of it, and then it's the 53rd minute, and it's 3-3, and then after that, anything could happen.
Yeah, we can say because it was a good header from Abu Ali, but the one of 𝐊𝐤𝐤, sorry for the pronunciation, was terribly poor defending for Halali's defender. He was alone. We know he is a physical striker, very tall, very powerful, and to let him alone in the 9 meters in the last third, it's impossible.
Well, it's one of those predictable terminologies of there's a comment in the section. Porto were lucky not to concede at the end. Yeah, they were. We'll come on to that in a sec. It's a highly predictable phrase, which is you're most likely to concede after you just scored. Yeah. You sort of switch off. This game should have been. Yeah, and that proved that case. Like, obviously, the high of scoring, and both teams were guilty of just switching off and allowing the other team to immediately respond. But talking about how beautiful the finish from William was for that goal, fast forward to the 64th minute, Ben Romdane, similarly, left side of the corner of the penalty box, cutting on his right foot, a vicious strike into the top corner.
It was extraordinary.
It was a gorgeous goal. I think my favourite of the match. Yeah. And Porto, for the third time, managed to equalise in the 89th minute through Pepe, which is, again, outside the box. This sort of like beautifully placed 25-yard shot, although it's one of those where you do wonder how the goalkeeper didn't get it. Not that it was the goalkeeper's fault, but another shot from outside the box. But as mentioned in the comments, Ali did have a chance to win it right at the end. But of course, at that point, it wasn't going to matter because the results from the other game, I believe that one blew for full time before the end of this one. So I think at that point, we knew that whatever the result between Porto and Ali, it wasn't going to make any difference. So those two finished on 2 points. Porto third with a -1 goal difference, and now Ali on a -2. But then we go over to the other game, Inter Miami 2, Palmeiras 2. I think Palmeiras deserved to win this game. If you look at, again, like 22 shots to 8, 7 shots on target to 3. They did seem to have, and even though they had slightly less possession, their chances were much more dangerous. They looked the more threatening when they always seemed to have a purpose when they were attacking or why they were crossing the ball, as opposed to aimlessly shooting.
Yeah. Firstly, I just wanna wish a happy birthday to the goat.
Oh yes, bon anniversaire! Yes, of course.
And yeah, it was entertaining. Also, less goals maybe, but still,
Still 30 shots. Still 30
yeah,
shots.
yeah. We can start talking about the first goal because it was kind of dramatic. I think because on the one hand, it was a serious mistake to be fooled like that before Palmeiras had an attacking corner. It's forbidden in football. And on the other, seeing the Palmeiras defender get injured,
Marilla.
to get Allende. Yeah. And what is funny, not really funny, but it is that Murillo, before the game, said he was a Cristiano Ronaldo fan and he wanted to get the few in front of Messi.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, destiny can be tricky.
Then it was a good finish. It was a good finish from Alan.
Yeah, because
he had to run. He collected the ball just inside his own half and ran 30, 40 yards with it, and a good finish.
It was really cold-blooded because it's not easy to score in that situation. And then it was
Suarez. I was going to say the second goal. Suarez was a bit of a throwback, but it was quite strange because it's on one hand you've got a classic Suarez goal who's managed to dribble past 3 players before firing a vicious left-footed, quote-unquote, wrong-footed finish into the top corner.
Yeah.
But it seemed like it was in slow motion. It wasn't. it was as if you watched like Suarez 10 years ago and then just put it down to half speed. It looked like that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's funny because you just used an expression. I took note and I wrote classic Luis Suarez goal. It was we had the same sensibility, and it reminded me why I believe he's the greatest striker in the last 10 years. It was full class, and I don't know if you can see that like I did, but it reminded me also kind of the goal he scored against PSG at Parc des Princes when Barcelona beat PSG 3-1, I think, in the Champions League.
I mean, someone remarked in a separate media outlet about how it was how it just basically it smelled all like Luis Suarez again, like the facing up under pressure from 2 defenders, facing them up, going past them, and then having the confidence to dribble past another one.
Yeah.
Because he could have cut inside on his quote-unquote stronger foot, but he didn't. He took it on his left foot, and that's how he bought himself extra space, because obviously the assumption is you would cut onto your right foot to get a stronger shot away, but him gambling on his own ability with his wrong foot buys in that extra yard of space, and just the connection is so sweet. The keeper even gets a good hand to it, but like it's such a well-struck shot. And it just reminds you of so many Suarez goals like that.
Yeah, because this goal is Suarez. When you look at highlights of his career, there are countless goals scored like in that way. Not exactly the same, evidently, but in that kind of goal, and he's really, really good. But defensively, it was very difficult for Inter Miami, in particular at the end of the game when they conceded both goals, because for me, in my opinion, it came from mistake, individual and collective, because the Palmeiras players were not being watched or followed on both goals. And Miami could even have lost Ustari's late save, hadn't happened.
Yeah, there's something that springs to mind, which is I think at one point Palmeiras missed a chance about the hour mark, and you saw the Palmeiras player completely sodden, like so wet. It's wet through with sweat. And of course, you then remember how hot and humid it is in these stadiums currently. So there is this element of Inter Miami, again, to emphasize, like they were, even though they had more possession, they definitely were on the defense more, which, as we know in the game, takes up a lot more energy to defend than it does to attack.
Yeah.
For long periods of time. So having to defend for these long periods of time, I mean, it took until the 80th minute for Palmeiras to get their first goal. So you could almost be forgiven to think that, one lapse in concentration, they're tired, they're fatigued. Unlike other teams, they've very little rotation for Inter Miami. Although I'd rather I think the second one is more of a mistake than the first. The first one, the ball comes out to Alan, about 25 yards from goal, and he lines up to shoot and plays this beautiful disguised pass. And it went through, like, perfectly between three Inter Miami players into the path of Paulinho. And that pass was, it was a bit special.
Yeah. But I think just Sergio Busquets never watched where Paulinho is. It's why I think it's a mistake. But because of this guy's pass, it was even more difficult to defend against that.
Now, as we know from the previous game, Porto 𝐊𝐤𝐜𝐤, that this result would have actually changed anything, because 𝐊𝐤𝐼 were always ahead or drawing with Porto, and Inter Miami were ahead at this point. So Palmeiras were never going out. But of course, PSG, as we'll come to later, ended up winning Group B. So actually, the fact that Palmeiras equalised, it was essential to avoid PSG in the next round. So Maurizio scoring the equaliser in the 87th minute, that was another hell of a finish. It was only a half clearance. You could say that was probably a mistake as well. They could have cleared it further. They could have got someone to press the player inside the penalty box. But a really crisp finish from Maurizio.
Yeah, it was very powerful. We saw a lot of powerful shots these 3 or 4 last games. Now, I think the draw is deserved for Palmeiras, at least, because, as we said, they could have won. And I want to note that yesterday on our predictions, we said that Palmeiras and Inter Miami were going to qualify. So, congrats, Daniel.
It's not Daniel, it's Nostradamus. Yeah, absolutely. But also, it's quite interesting when you look at the 6 different matches in Group A. There were 4 draws. There were only 2 victories, and one of those, Inter Miami beat Porto 2-1, and Porto were probably the better team. And actually, the only match, Palmeiras were slightly better than 𝐊𝐼𝐼, but again, so actually, I suppose you could argue in the entire competition, Group A was the most interesting, simply because the 4 teams were relatively even. As opposed to what we've actually spoken before we came on air, how you've got Group E, F, H, and several others where you've got 3 teams fighting for the 2 qualification places. But there have been teams eliminated. But in Group A, they all could have qualified. And as we saw, 4 of the 6 matches were draws, kind of suggests that this was a very even group.
Yeah. And if we can, and I can take what you're saying to jump on the Group B, which was the hardest group of the competition, in my opinion.
Well, I certainly, we say sort of different competitive nature. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get the first one out of the way. So Seattle Sounders 0, Paris Saint-Germain 2. A word on the Seattle Sounders, because they finished on 0 points. But I did look back to remind myself, because this match, PSG were always in control. They had 72% possession. Seattle Sounders didn't have a shot on target.
No.
But they had managed to get 7 shots away, which isn't so bad at all against the Champions League, the UEFA Champions League winners. But against Botafogo, Seattle had 60% possession, managed 23 shots, and lost 2-1. I think they were the better team against Botafogo, to be honest. And against Atletico Madrid, they only had 43% possession, but they had more shots than Atletico and lost 3-1. So in those two matches, they were very competitive. Like, they've got 0 points, but they were by no means the whipping boys. They really could have gotten something out. Maybe not into the next round, but they really could have gotten something from this group.
Yeah. So we had done with it. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah, I agree. But to be honest, yesterday Paris were dominant. It was not a surprise. Everyone predicted it, but I was kind of disappointed by Seattle, not because I think they could have done better and win against PSG, but considering what we saw about them in the last two games, yeah, I would have preferred them to maybe attack more, just to save the day, if I can say the least. But yeah, now they have to go back to the MLS next week on Saturday. So I think there was also a kind of they wanted to be fresh for the championship. They are not first in their conference. They want to qualify for the playoffs. So yeah,
I would say I'm going to jump in and defend Seattle slightly, because I know what you mean by we would have liked them to attack more. Of course, another comment here. I know Botafogo qualified, but I still think PSG and Atletico are better overall than Botafogo.
Yeah.
I would probably agree with that. However, that's the kind of the beautiful thing about these kind of competitions, is that the best teams might not actually get through. It's irrelevant which the best team is. It's how you perform against these, so that against individual teams, in this case clubs. But yeah, Seattle. First of all, we've seen it's incredibly hard to attack PSG because of the pressing they do. Some far better teams than Seattle have not been able to attack PSG. But I would also say that actually it was only 1-0 to PSG, and it was a lucky goal at that, because Vitinha's shot from the edge of the box was going miles wide and then just deflected off of 𝐊𝐤𝐜𝐤. But yes, in the 66th minute, Seattle were attacking. And I forget who it was, but the attacker cut inside from the right into the penalty area, but just overran it slightly. And PSG managed to pass it into the centre circle. Then one pass, and suddenly Barcola is running at goal. He pulls the ball across the box, and Hakimi is unmarked at the back post. So about 20 seconds after Seattle are attacking and are in the Paris Saint-Germain box, 20 seconds later, Paris Saint-Germain score their second goal. It's you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But the fact that Seattle only lost 2-0, I think, quite frankly, that's also respectable. Atletico Madrid 1, Botafogo 0. Now, yesterday, another comment from SSB. I know Seattle had issues prior to the tournament with their pay for the tournament and money distribution. Yeah, I actually, this applied to a couple of teams, didn't it? Because we're still not sure. I think part of it is down to not knowing how much money you're going to win, because obviously there's a participation fee.
Yeah.
But also, not that this applies to Seattle, but each time you win a match, you get an extra bonus. I wonder if other MLS teams had an issue with this tournament as well. Yeah, I imagine, if anything, LAFC, just possibly because they were the latest to join the tournament. But I'm afraid I don't know all the details. But yes, so Atletico Madrid. So yesterday I said I had a horrible feeling Atletico Madrid would win enough by 2 goals to knock out Botafogo. I'm so relieved I was wrong about that, although I did predict they're winning. Yes, so Atletico Madrid, 1-0, 61% possession, 24 shots, 5 on target, and an XG of 3.2 something. I forgot what the exact figure is, and only 1 goal. And they're eliminated. How did you think they performed? Do you think they choked? Do you think they did enough?
I think first I have a question for you, and I just want to see if you agree with my thought that Atletico were nervous. I found them with a lot of tension in that game, because of course they wanted to qualify, but I think it was more due to the fact that they couldn't break the Botafogo's luck.
I suppose. I mean, I understand. I think I understand why you say that. I guess I would suggest that if you look at Atletico Madrid's season, the first half of the season, they were in a genuine title race. They looked really good. And you get this occasionally with Simeone, where the next generation of Atletico players, he tries to get them, Simeone should give up on defensive football. Well, yes and no. So this is what I'm coming on to. So this is the second time that I'm aware of that Simeone has tried to change his team, because obviously a lot of new players in the summer.
Yeah.
And suddenly they were playing this like quite progressive, quite interesting attacking football. And they had some big scoring games where they scored. I think they scored more than 5 on 3 different occasions this season, which again, hugely impressive. And then it got to about January, February, and the form started slipping, and then it went back to defensive football. But obviously Simeone in the past with the defensive football, they had defensive players, whereas now he's got more attacking players. It maybe doesn't quite fit as it used to. Granted, I don't think they have the quality of players to play attacking football consistently. That's exactly my point, yes. Although they do have some real quality. Yes, I'm not sure they're nervous. I think they might be caught between 2 identities and don't quite have the craft. I think if Antoine Griezmann, I mean, this sounds disrespectful, but if it was even 2 years ago, I think Griezmann has enough about him where he can be the one to unlock the door for Alvarez or Surloff. I would probably say, I think, like I say, Atletico created enough in this match to win the game. There weren't any glaring misses, but they probably should have scored twice. Although, having said that, actually, it turns out that they needed to win by 3 goals to qualify. I mean, I would say, sorry, this is a bit of a monologue now. My argument would be, I think they are unlucky. Any team that gets knocked out on 6 points in the group stage is unlucky. If you win 2 of your group matches and get knocked out, essentially that means one team has performed so well in another match, or you've performed badly. And in this case, Atletico Madrid have been eliminated because they lost so badly to Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah. And just to bounce back on what SSB said about the defensive football, I don't think Atletico is. I think Atletico is no longer a defensive team because they don't have the players to play that defensive game. When they were all the Gavi and Gabi, sorry,
and go down in the fact, there's this incredible sort of suffering presence.
And it was that kind of defensive machine that caused Europe's all kind of troubles. Now, I think the biggest problem is that, as you said, they are between the defensive identity and they want to turn more attacking. I think the transfer of Alvarez emphasizes this idea because, as we saw yesterday, just before the Griezmann's goal, Alvarez's move was extraordinary. He's a player. He's a top player, world class.
Maybe world class.
Yeah, he's world class. I think in the top 3 strikers in the world at the moment. So I think Simeone wants to do something else, propose something else, because he's been there for 14 years now. He knows that his defensive qualities are not the same as they're used to, and football doesn't really reward a defensive team these days. So he has to change something.
I'm going to argue slightly because football always goes in cycles, right? So the second you have a certain type of tactic or football that everybody uses, there is the new creation or going back to like an old-fashioned tactic that then beats that. I mean, this is one of the reasons why Mourinho kept winning for so long, right? So he managed to he was the antidote to Guardiola's genius, which was a case of just like, don't let them be geniuses, which is kind of basic when you think about that, but the ability to actually stop the other team playing so well. Other than Alvarez, they really don't have anybody who is world-class. Some players can be world-class on their day. They need consistency to compete. That is true. But again, just to remind people that that Simeone has won 2 La Liga titles, one of which was with the classic defensive team that we're describing, the one that got to the final of the Champions League.
Yeah, with
twice,
etc.
Yeah. But they also won La Liga quite recently.
In 2020,
right? And that was with
Suarez.
Suarez when he was like 33, 34. That team probably shouldn't have won La Liga, and yet they did. And yet that was still a defensive team. Yeah. I think when you think back to like when Atletico Madrid bought, say, João Felix, that seemed to mark the progression of, okay, now we want to play more attacking football. But it didn't work. And the second it didn't work, suddenly you had this 116 million euro or however much João Felix cost. You had this player that actually didn't fit because he wasn't the defensive player and he couldn't be a striker to hold up the ball. He was, hence why he's never found a place, right? He's been loaned out here, loaned out there, sold there, and he can't find a home because he's this nothing player in a defensive system. What's possible is that there are attacking players in this team. Now, Griezmann is 34, I believe, 33, 34. So he is past his prime.
33. He's 33, yeah.
He's still, without doubt, he's still quality and has the intelligence and the technique. It's just you have to play slightly differently. Alvarez is a class forward, absolutely. The ability to run it behind, drop short, the intelligence of that is fantastic. Sørloth, apart from this tournament, he's actually a fairly clinical striker. I mean, in La Liga, I think he had one of the best goals per minute ratios.
I think he scored 23 goals this season.
Yeah. And yet, in this campaign, no one has had more XG without scoring than Sørloth, I don't think.
Yeah.
The Felix move was not needed. Simeone should have reinvested in the squad. Koke was on the 2014 team, and he's still playing. Yes, I think we basically agree with that. But also, sorry, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I just agree with what SSB just said about Felix. But I think the problem was not to buy Felix. The problem was to buy Felix for 126 million euros. This is the main problem because I think he's a talented player, but his progression is not linear. He never showed what everyone expected of him. And just to bounce back on the attacking side of Atletico, what's funny with that club is that if you look at the forwards they got in the last 10 or 15 years, they got some world-class forward. If we talk about Torres, Falcao, Luis Suarez, now Alvarez, Griezmann, we used to play higher previously. They got some really, really, really nice forwards.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I suppose the thing is, I'm going to kind of contradict myself because when you think about Felix, had there been a possession-dominant team that's happened, you imagine that he would have slotted into significantly better, right? Getting on the ball, finding those half spaces, the pockets, the ability to find passes, and he's very cultured, classy player. Yeah. Quite similar to Griezmann, actually. Yeah. So it's surprising that Griezmann has been such a success under Simeone, and in fact, but it could just be experience, or it could be the difference between a world-class player and one that's not quite. Obviously, because João Felix was younger when he started under Simeone.
And I think that the difference between Felix and Griezmann, because they play in the kind of same area on the pitch, but I think Griezmann were more determined to make his place in Atletico. He had physical capacities, qualities that Felix doesn't have. So, and maybe more determination. Felix, I think, his transfer made him think everything was okay, was made for him. He didn't. I think he didn't think he has something to prove at Atletico, and the rest of his career shows that, because when he arrived at Barcelona, he made some good things at the start of his adventure. Then the fire ceased. Then at Milan, at AC Milan, he did the same thing. So I think he's someone talented, but he doesn't want to give his best to succeed in his teams.
Slightly off topic though. So we're going to go back to the Club World Cup. So
Yeah.
to give the final placings for Group B, Paris Saint-Germain have won the group with 6 points and a +5 goal difference. Botafogo are second with 6 points with a +1 goal difference. Atletico Madrid on 6 points with a -1 goal difference, and Seattle Sounders with 0 points. So that does mean we've had 2 big eliminations. We've had Porto and Atletico Madrid. Both are eliminated. Palmeiras will go into the next round and face Botafogo, which means we definitely have a Brazilian team in the quarterfinal, which is fantastic. And that is in the top half of the draw. And in the bottom half of the draw, you have Paris Saint-Germain against Inter Miami. Narrative alert. As Leo Messi, happy birthday, as Leo Messi will face his former club. That's an exciting one.
Yeah. And his former club, with whom the adventure doesn't get good. When he left, he had a lot of discussion about how bad his adventure at PSG went. Personally, to have followed him closely because of the Liga, because of the Liga, yeah, he had a lot of troubles at Paris. Just sportively talking, more on the first season than in the second, because the second he scored, I think, if I remember correctly, in Liga he scored 16 goals and assisted 16 goals. So it was something no one has ever done in the championship. But the thing is that I think it was kind of part of the problem at this period with Neymar and Mbappe. It's so weird to say Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe could be a problem, but the thing is that he was part of this offensive trio, and we all know, observatories, that they never recovered, they never made defensive efforts. But it was not a surprise for Messi, because we had seen him for 15 years at Barca, and we know how he played. We knew how he played. So, but the thing is that 1 + 1 + 1 it was too big, and I think Christophe Galtier, who was the PSG's coach at that time, he doesn't have the charisma, the thing to make his point with all those stars.
I do get your point, and also it's interesting to think, because obviously that's the trio of Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. Obviously, Messi and Neymar were together in a Champions League winning Barcelona side, but in between them, there was Luis Suarez in his prime.
Yeah.
So you had this world-class striker who was happy to sort of drop deep, to hold up the ball, to basically link. And yet, when you included Mbappe in that, it didn't quite work. There was something missing in regards to just the link between them all. Although that's kind of a contradiction as well, because again, like, they all provided assists for each other. But I think that kind of will show you League One, that obviously a team like that could still win the league, although they didn't 1 year.
No,
they could still win the league. And yet when they faced opposition in the Champions League, you saw it fall apart, and you saw it like, yes, a system is much better than 3 iconic, unbelievable world talents.
Yeah.
But yes, so Paris Saint-Germain will play Inter Miami, and they're in the bottom half of the draw. Palmeiras and Botafogo in the top half of the draw. Right, shall we have a quick look at the fixtures for today? So coming up first, the Group C, we've got Auckland City versus Boca Juniors and Benfica versus Bayern. Now, the way the way this has worked, obviously, because the winner of this group will play the runner-up of Group D, the winner of Group D will play the runner-up of C. That we mentioned earlier, I completely forgot that Flamengo have won Group D because they can't be caught at the top because of head-to-head rules.
Yeah.
So they will face the runner-up of this group, which I mean, it could be Bayern Munich, but it's more likely to be Benfica or Boca Juniors.
Yeah.
That would then face PSG into Miami. Hence how the draw works. So Auckland City, Boca. So the narrative for this group, because currently you've got Bayern on 6 points, Benfica on 4, Boca Juniors on 1, and Auckland City on 0. So
Yeah.
we're looking at this. If hypothetically, if Bayern Munich beats Benfica, then it's going to come down to goal difference between Boca and Benfica, which is currently 7 apart. I think Boca Juniors is currently -1, and Benfica is +6. No, +7. +6. Do you think it's a combination? Do you think Boca Juniors will score enough goals against Auckland City? Do you think Benfica will concede too many against Bayern? Or do you see Benfica getting a point against Bayern?
To be honest, I will watch of Bayern versus Benfica because of I think it will be the most technical game, the most good-looking one, the big game of the day. But if you watch Boca Junior versus Auckland City, I believe you will see a good game because Boca Juniors know that they have an opportunity to grab the second place to Benfica. I think Bayern will beat Benfica, but the thing is, now the question is how many goals? It was the same question as Benfica versus Auckland. How many goals will Boca Juniors score against Auckland, and how many goals Benfica will concede to Bayern? So it will be really interesting. But I think honestly that I won't take the bet. Boca Junior is going to qualify, and Benfica lose to Bayern.
And in Group D, we said before that Flamengo have won the group. They play in Group D. Currently in last place are LAFC with 0 points. Then third are Esperance Tunis with 3 points. Chelsea is second with 3 points, and Flamengo are first with 6 points. Yeah. But as Flamengo have beaten both Chelsea and Esperance Tunis, they can't be caught. Yeah. So Flamengo have won the group, which also means that they can probably rotate against LAFC.
Yeah. Just to answer SSB, who says this is the last game for Auckland. They don't want to go out by 7 or 8 goals. They don't need, because if Bayern beats Benfica 3-0 and Boca Juniors beat Auckland 4-5, it will be okay for Boca Juniors.
It might not be as straightforward because I was really impressed. The first half, Auckland City against Benfica.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a lot of stoppage time in the first half, and then there was a bit of a soft penalty, although it was a penalty that Di Maria converted. So it was only 1-0 Benfica at half time. Then obviously, again, we're talking about a semi-professional side. Professional sides in this heat and humidity are wilting in the second half. So it's no surprise to see that Auckland City concede more goals towards the end of the second half. I mean, you saw it against Bayern Munich, of course. They scored, what was it, 4 goals in the last 15 minutes? Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things where actually Boca could be only winning like 1 or 2 goals with 20 minutes remaining. But also, it may be depending on what's going on in the other game. If they know Benfica, say hypothetically, if they're drawing or they're winning, Boca, it happens all the time in sort of knockout competitions or the league when the crowd start, the news gets to you what the other results are. Yeah. So if Boca if Boca learn that Benfica are drawing or they're winning, then Boca may not have that same urgency. However, if they know that Benfica are losing and they're only a couple of goals up, that last 15, 20 minutes against Auckland City is going to be an onslaught. But you'll know that you'll keep getting chances because Auckland will get tired. And that's not to be disrespectful to Auckland. It's just we are talking about a professional team against a semi-professional team.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because Auckland will have played 3 games in a week, which is not usual for a semi-professional team. So I think the physical aspect will be really important in that game, and that's what could make that Boca Juniors will qualify.
So I think this. So as we said before, LAFC against Flamengo. Flamengo have won. LAFC are out. So chances that's our first real dead rubber of the tournament.
Yeah.
But Esperance Tunis and Chelsea. Chelsea currently second, so Chelsea can draw and go through to second place. Esperance Tunis need to win. Do you see Esperance Tunis winning this game?
I don't think so. I think Chelsea wants to prove they can become again a big team in Europe and in the world. So I think Enzo Maresca will start with his best players. He will not make a turnover.
I'm gonna quickly jump in and argue, because here's the thing. I would completely agree with you usually, but a few times you saw last season under Maresca, Chelsea did just a handful of times capitulated. They sort of crumbled under pressure just a few times, and that's what you're going to get. It's a very young team, so that is going to happen with inexperience. Against Flamengo, they were in complete control, 1-0 up, and in the 62nd minute they conceded. Then they conceded again 3 or 4 minutes later, and then only a couple of minutes later, Nicholas Jackson needlessly gets a red card. So in the space of 5 minutes, they go from winning the match to having a complete meltdown, conceding twice, and having a man sent off. Of course, Nicholas Jackson is suspended for this match. So the only attacking option is Liam Delap.
Yeah, but for Tunis, Belaïli too, and he was the best player for Esperance.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. But yes, so that's my concern. My concern is I can see, as we discussed in several episodes, like Maresca's Chelsea play slowly. They control where they can. It's a bit boring. I can absolutely see them sort of taking an easy lead, but I can also see Tunis, say, getting a goal out of somewhere and provoking like a panic or tension. I do think Chelsea have enough about them to win, but I don't think it's going to be straightforward. I think there's going to be that moment. I can sort of foresee, this is me being Nostradamus again, I could see Chelsea winning 2-0 with 20 minutes left. Esperance Tunis score a goal out of absolutely nowhere. They have another corner, they miss. There's panic stations, and Chelsea managed to have a breakaway goal in like the 85th, 86th minute and win. So I can see it being like 2-1 or 3-1 to Chelsea. But like I say, I do not see it being an easy ride. Chelsea have vulnerabilities.
But it wouldn't be a surprise for me if this game ends in a draw. I don't think Esperance can win. Of course they can, but will win. But I think they can hold a draw if they put the intensity Flamengo showed against Chelsea. It can do the difference. But I think the difference between Tunis and Flamengo is the quality, the individual qualities. Moreover, if Belaïli is absent tonight, it will be harder than expected for them.
So you're going for so you're saying Bayern wins Group C and Boca Juniors second?
Yeah.
And you're saying Flamengo, well, they've won the group, and you're saying Chelsea just enough to get through.
Yeah. I think too.
I don't think Esperance Tunis have enough to win the game. And this is the benefit of where Chelsea are, right? They don't have to win. They just have to draw. They know they can't win the group, so there's no real pressure for that. This is just a case of don't lose.
Yeah.
So hypothetically, if that happens, then Chelsea would play. Oh no, Flamengo would play Boca Juniors in the next round, and Chelsea would play Bayern Munich. That would be another fun one. In fact, hypothetically, again, this is just hypothetical. If that were to happen, that would mean that the winner of Palmeiras and Botafogo would play the winner of Chelsea Bayern.
Yeah, we will have a
good quarterfinal.
Yeah, we will have a Copa Libertadores round of 16 with Palmeiras, Botafogo.
Because obviously, and then hypothetically Flamengo, Boca
Juniors. Yeah,
I personally think Benfica. I think Benfica will go through instead of Boca, just because I think we're talking about goal difference. I think I'm not convinced Boca have enough goals in them. I'm not certain Benfica will concede that many. I think them and Bayern will be a close game. I can see them getting a draw or just losing by one. I think they'll just squeeze through on one or two goals. That's it. But then this is it. We're talking about it. It's such a minute thing. We're talking about how many goals you score against the weakest team in the competition.
Yeah. But do you think Bayern will beat Benfica?
I think probably, to be honest. I think Bayern, it's unusual, isn't it? Because actually watching them a lot last season and in the Champions League, it's not often they completely impress you, but they do have a lot of let's say right parts. They have a lot of very good players that do have like these moments of quality. The fact that they've got 𝐊𝐢𝐜𝐤, although I think he might be injured in this game, Kane, who are all creative players as well as capable of scoring, I think is a big thing. They don't just have, say for example, it's a bad comparison, but like Lewandowski, right? Lewandowski is one of the all-time great goal scorers, but not that many assists to his name, whereas Kane does offer both. So the fact that Bayern Munich share the goals around so much, I think really, really helps them against anybody. It's incredibly hard to defend against that when sort of it's coming from all directions. Speaking of which, actually, before we call this a day, so I was looking at the top goal scorers in this tournament so far.
Yeah,
still got the rest of C, D, E, F, G, and H to finish their third game. You will not be surprised. The top of the goal scoring charts, you've got three players who have played against Auckland. So you've got Michael Olise, who scored 3. You've got Jamal Musiala, who got a hat-trick against Auckland, and Angel Di Maria with 3. So again, players that have played against Auckland City. Seems a bit unfair. But also, you have, where's he gone? Abu Ali from Al Ali, who's obviously now been eliminated, but still, his hat-trick puts him tied. And the other player is
Yildiz, no?
It's Yildiz, yeah. It's Yildiz, and haven't all 3 of his goals been outside? No, 2 of his goals from been outside
2 of
the area.
his goals, yeah.
One of them. So Yildiz is tied for the top, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, but it will depend on their path to the final, because they will play against Manchester City in match day 3, but I don't know who they will play in the next round. If they
I might be wrong, but I'm fairly certain. I'm fairly certain Juventus are currently top of their group. So again, they just need to draw. And as we've seen, they're very good at defending and shutting things down when they want to. Might not be enough though. Manchester City look very good. Right. Okay. So I think we're going to call it there. So our predictions are Bayern win the group for C, and then we differ on whether it's Boca or Benfica. But Flamengo have won Group D, and then it's the 2 big matches to look out for from Group C: Benfica and Bayern. To see if who will win the group, and also will one of those will Benfica be eliminated? And from Group D, Esperance Tunis versus Chelsea. Winner takes all, or draw takes Chelsea. Yeah. You know what I mean. It's bound to be interesting though, and then we'll have half of the quarterfinals ready. Well, half of the round of 16s, but then you see the path. I love it when you get the round of 16s filled in, and then you can see the path to the final. That's always really fun to see hypothetically where, and also we'll see if there's an easier half of the draw. That would be quite interesting, because obviously the more shocks you get, the more surprises with teams eliminated. The more interesting the path to the final. But also, of course, as we said before, we've had big eliminations. Porto are out. Atletico Madrid are out. Benfica are at risk. Chelsea are at risk.
Yeah.
At the start of the tournament.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you just repeat?
Sorry, I feel like I was saying Chelsea at risk, Benfica at risk. Who would have thought that at the start of the tournament?
Yeah, Salzburg at risk also with Al Hilal, but not today. But
I mean today. I'm keeping straight today. Yeah, but the fact, there are plenty of European teams, which is
Yeah.
healthy for the competition. Anything else you want to add, Leo, before we end?
No, I think we talked about everything we should today.
Lovely.
So
I will thank you very much for joining me once again on episode 10 of VAR and Espresso. Thank you all for watching and joining us. Make sure you look at us and find us on the socials. Subscribe, follow, all of that. Although not literally follow, that's illegal. And we will see you tomorrow. Where we'll have yet more news.
Thanks everybody, and thanks Daniel. So see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much, guys. Join you then.
Goodbye.